on the 2024 budget of the Nigerian Communications Commission. The Nigerian Communications Commission is the regulatory authority for the telecommunications industry in Nigeria, established by the Nigerian Communications Act 2023. The Commission is responsible for creating an enabling environment for the competition among operators in the telecommunications industry, as well as ensuring the provision of the qualitative and efficient telecommunications services in the country. 2024 Budget Defense. The committee held Budget Defense meeting on Wednesday, 20th March 2024. During the Budget Defense session, the EBC, that is the Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive of the Nigerian Communications Commission, and its management team made their presentations and also made clarifications on the area of committee sought for further information. This 2024 NCC budget has been harmonized with the House of Representatives. Memberships, please see page 1 and 2. Our performance of 2023 budget for NCC. Please also see page 3 and 4. The Nigerian Communications Commission NCC budget proposal for the year 2024. In accordance with the Section 19, Section 1 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003, and Section 21, Schedule of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. The Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, submitted a projected revenue of 549.6 billion, out of which recurrent expenditure is the sum of 115 billion, and the capital expenditure is the sum of 18 billion. The sum of 66.7 billion is for special intervention projects, where the sum of 17 billion will be transferred to the Universal Service Provision Fund, USCF. The sum of 332.8 billion will be transferred to the federal government of Nigeria. Summary of the framework of the Nigerian Communications Commission NCC budget proposal for the year 2024. Please see page 5. Notes on the expenditure framework. The recurrent expenditure of 115 billion consists of salaries and wages, operational costs, spectrum and regulatory expenses, and the professional fees. 2. Capital expenditure of 18 billion consists of the Commission internal projects, which is carefully selected to boost its revenue generation potentials, as well as replace obsolete fixed assets. 3. Special Intervention Project, SIP, of 66.7 billion is inclusive of the Commission's flagship intervention projects, such as strategic intervention projects, emergency communication center projects, subscribers identity management, digital skills, entrepreneurship, and digital parks. The sum of 33.8 billion and 17 billion is for transfer to the federal government of Nigeria and the Universal Service Provision Fund, respectively. Details of the framework of the Nigerian Communications Commission's NCC budget proposal for the year 2024. Please see page 6, 7, and 8. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, findings. After extensive deliberations on the 2024 budget by NCC, the committee observes as follows. 1. The 2024 budget of NCC was prepared to reflect the resources necessary for the Commission to keep abreast emerging technologies of the industry and set rational regulatory goals consistent with the statutory mandate. For the Commission to arrive at the budget estimates, adequate attention was paid to the macroeconomics indices prevent in the economy, which are the rate of inflation, the federal government directives on TSA, monetary policy rate, MPR, and subsidy removal, the diversifications of the economy through innovation technologies, and the stabilization of the exchange rate. 2, that the Commission's revenue of 549.6 billion consists of the annual license fees of 3.5 billion, annual operational levy of 135.5 billion, spectrum fees of 292.3 billion, numbering plan of 7 billion, administrative charges of 33 billion, type of approval fees of 1.3 billion, and sundry income of 400 million, federal government intervention for digital switch over of 40.5 billion, and the cost collections of spectrum of 36.5 billion. And 3, that the Commission's total expenditure of 549.5 billion consists of the total recurrent expenditure of 155 billion, total capital expenditure of 18 billion. 549.6, sir.
No, I thought you have 549.6.
Yes, 549.6, sir.
Instead of 0.5.
Yes, sir.
I'll just correct it as you move ahead.
All right, sir. Thank you. Expenditure of 18 billion, total special projects of 66.7 billion, transferred to the federal government and transferred to the Universal Service Provision Fund, USCF, of 32.8 billion and 17 billion, respectively. Recommendation, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, that the Senate do approve the sum of 549 billion, 674 million and 311,000 naira only as the Nigerian Communications Commission budget for the year 2024. Prayer that the Senate do approve the recommendations of the committee. Mr. President, I so move.
The entire report is well packaged, and the details are made in a way that is quite clear for everyone to understand what is going on. And I'm more pleased because of the fact that the revenue is going to increase compared to what was actually got. I mean, what's actually got accrued to the agency or the commission last year. Last year, the actual was 448 billion, but now, due to the thorough oversight being mounted by the committee, the revenue will now go to the tune of 549 billion. This is a very good, this is a quite good development, and I urge the committee to continue on what it's doing by providing sound oversight, because from what we've been hearing, the chairman and the members of the committee have been doing a wonderful job, and it's been demonstrated here. We're going by what we've seen here, because I'm sure it's because of their good oversight. That is why the agency, the commission, decided to put this together, so that more money will now accrue to the federal government compared with what was gotten last year. So I once again commend the chairman, and please continue the good work you are doing in that committee. Thank you, Mr.
Communications for a very good job. Mr. President, I want us to go down the memory lane, especially those of us that participated in the 9th Senate. There was so much argument at that time whether Nigeria was prepared to have effective and efficient electronic voting system, given the total coverage at the time. And it was very obvious that we didn't have the correct information regarding who is covered and who is not, especially in the Nigerian rural environment. INEC said it was prepared to have very smooth electronic voting. The Minister of Communications at that time came and said the coverage was less than 50%. That is to say, only about 50% of Nigeria could participate fully in the electronic voting system. Mr. President, I am also coming, and I want you to bear with me, my colleagues, from the idea of financial inclusion, because these two are issues that affect our people who are in the rural areas. Most of what we do today are online. Those who are not having access to the ICT are automatically shut out. And they're in a good number. Mr. President, I believe that the budget coming from NCC, the budget coming from CBN, the budget even from the Ministry of Finance should have focus on providing ICT access, or at least accessibility to these facilities these days for Nigerians to participate fully regardless of where they stay. Very soon, one day, we'll reach a point at which they will say elections will be electronically conducted, and arguments will ensue again. Similarly, Mr. President, we have been having a lot of empowerment programs, especially in the last administration, coming to this administration as well, that will say you access the platform. How do they access the platforms when they have no access facilities? So this should concern us. If nothing is reflected to that effect for giving financial inclusion or coverage in the terms of access to ICT, I think we should have deliberate way of handling this before the 2027 elections will come, and then somebody will say, well, my people are not going to participate in this, and another person who is not from his place will say, no, you have access, and we will be the people to blame. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, distinguished Senator. You know, most politicians think of the next election. So it's had 50% coverage. I don't know whether it has improved. So the chairman, the Senate Committee on Communications, you must also find out for us what the percentage of coverage is now. Because like he said, one day we may end up with electronic voting system. And that will have to mean that ICT has penetrated all the rural areas in the country. And arising from what you said, you see there is a lot of injustice currently being wrought on our local communities, because even federal government agencies will tell you that for you to apply for a job, you have to the portal has been opened. You have to go online and apply. So how will somebody, a graduate in a community in the rural area that has no access to the internet, how is that person going to apply? How would the person even know when the portal is open and when the portal is closed? We mean that those jobs were never meant for them. And that can also account for the huge jobless graduates that we have in many of our rural communities who are not even aware when some of these portals are open and when some of them are closed. So we must find a way around it. And the chairman of Labour and productivity in the Senate must find a way, because we have to work closely with employing agencies to be sure that the information is well disseminated, not just on the issue of we open the portal is closed, and therefore you are shut out. As a Nigerian, you can be interviewed, you can be employed simply because you don't have internet facilities in your area. Is there Senator Kobondo? You wanted to make a contribution?
Before the arrival at this report. And the issues raised by our leader, the Senate President Emeritus, also comes under the purview of continuous oversight, which will remain work in progress to ensure that the spread and reach of their professional activities will be actualized over time. With all that in mind, and with this submission, Your Excellency, I urge my colleagues to support this motion and for the Senate to pass this report. Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Senate President.
Thank you. This is Senator Olamileko,
representing Ogun West Senatorial District. Mr. President, let me join my other colleagues in commending the committee for a job well done. I say this in light of the revenue of these agencies in terms of contribution to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. And let me make it clear that National Communications Commission is one of the major contributors to the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the federal government through the sale of spectrum. And I can vividly recollect, during the budget defense process, we observed that there is the sale of spectrum that is not recognized in the 2024 appropriation bill. And at the committee level, the agency agreed with us due to fluctuation in exchange rate. And I called the chairman, and I can see that that has reflected, because we recognize it on the budget, and it has equally been reflected in their document. Mr. President, having said that, in line with the contribution of Senator Ahmad Lawan, the Senate President Emeritus, I observe, and this is one area I want the committee to look critically into, that the cost of recurrent expenditure compared with the cost of capital expenditure, the gap is wide. 115 billion to the recurrent expenditure and a total of 18 billion to the capital expenditure. I think this is one area the committee should ask more questions as to what are the components, because at this time and age, we want a situation whereby we balance it, that the cost of providing the necessary dividend of the market, part of which is the coverage which Senator Ahmed Lawan has referred to, should have been covered under their capital expenditure, as not reflecting, and more to the recurrent expenditure is one major area the committee should look into going into the future and scrutinize the document further for further clarification as to why this wide gap that we have. And also to make it known that the remaining 2 billion that is left on that account as surplus, 80% of it should also go to the Consolidated Revenue Fund in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. That I think I should mention, and the chairman also should follow through. Having said this, Mr. President, I commend the committee for the job well done. Thank you. I so submit, Mr. President, that the money should move into the Consolidated Revenue Fund. For instance, the sales of spectrum and all other revenue have accrued, and they have it's explicit there, the breakdown of their capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure. And when it nets it off, the remaining balance, the surplus, 80% of that should go to the CRF. That's just an observation for the committee to take note.
So, committee, you note it. We is realized within the year. Then you should oversight to make sure that the so-called surplus is moved into the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation. So I also join to observe that the recurrent expenditure of 115 billion compared to capital expenses of 18 billion simply means that we are looking at over 80% in recurrent expenses and less than 20% in capital expenses. The gap is very wide, so you must look at what they are spending money on, and then they may need to reduce in order to avoid wastages, so that they put more money in capital to allow us to have deeper penetration of telecommunications in the entire country. But having said that, I want to thank all my colleagues for their contributions, because it's still as I want to present. And at this stage, I'll have to put the question. Distinguished colleagues, having listened to the presentation by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Communications and the beautiful work done by the members of that committee, which I'm particularly impressed that it is already harmonized with the House of Representatives. So the report we are having now is a harmonized report by the House of Representatives. So that's why I said I'm impressed. So we may not need to do any other thing after this. I would like to also thank all those who have made contributions and observations. So those in favor that the Senate do approve the 2024 budget of the Universal, of the Nigerian Communications Commission, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The sum of 549 billion 674 million and 311,000 naira only has been approved as the budget estimate for the Nigerian Communications Commission for the year 2024. Chairman, Communications.